Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and it's finally time to dive deeper into my favorite franchise. And in an effort to talk about as many Rangers as possible, we're breaking down these Ranger top 10 lists by color. Most of you know my feelings about Power Rangers, so I'm not going to pretend that these videos won't be biased to an extent. I have nothing but unadulterated love and passion for all things Rangers, and there's no escaping that, nor would I want to. So that will largely govern my perspective, but ideally, my reasoning will also carry some weight, as with most of my other videos. Like with any character list, I don't think there's any right or wrong here, so be sure to share your own favorite yellow spandex wearing superheroes down below. With all that said, let's power up with number 10. Kira really is one of the most literal examples of a teenager with attitude. Her entire aesthetic was something so unique by Ranger standards, and I think Emma Lahana as an actress really captures the whole goth rocker persona well, because her music in the context of the show really gets at the heart of a much deeper character. And one of the best parts about her character is not just who she is, but how she's able to relate to the others, namely Trent, who comes to her to try and explain everything he's been going through during the beautifully constructed White Ranger arc. And I think there's a lot to be said for Rangers that aren't prototypical hero types, characters that have to overcome the fear and uncertainty of being thrusted into a very different world in order to save it. Great seasons usually have great Rangers, and Dino Thunder is no exception. Z was one of those Rangers that resonated with me immediately. Her natural desire to help those less fortunate, in addition to her sharp but never overplayed intelligence, already makes her a great character. But what also does it is the way they develop her past and allow that to speak to her present and give proper context for her abilities and her personality, a facet of S.P.D. done very well with Z, and arguably even better with Sky. The Sam arc is the perfect example of all of this, allowing us to not just understand her troubled past, but allowing her to express the empathy needed to help out the people in trouble now. Just one of the many ways that S.P.D. proves to be one of the better written seasons out there. It's pretty easy to make villains out of misunderstood or bullied individuals in a series, heck Rancic is pretty much that, but what's really great about Z is how her character flips that script by becoming the change she wants to see in the world. A great Ranger for another great season. Katie is a great character for several reasons, and one of the most salient reasons behind her greatness is how her personality balances the cast. Even though she's physically the strongest, she's allowed to be emotionally expressive in very different ways versus the rest of the team, especially Jen. Her emotional strength is on full display on several different occasions, with not just the way she interacts with her teammates, especially Trip, who she's especially protective of, but with how her character functions as a means to connect us to the more dour side of time travel, the unintended consequences. In one of the best episodes of the season, she's feeling distraught specifically because of the potential damage that fighting Rancic in 2001 could do to the year 3000, and because of how her relationship with her family and her team is established, it hits that much harder, in addition to making sense coming from her perspective. In a season with many great characters and great stories, her passion shines through as a valuable part of Time Force. If you're fans of the show, then you're also likely privy to the fact that early on, when the seasons were longer, actors were written off the show for various reasons, and while it created an implausible mechanic for the power transfer halfway through Turbo, it also made it so that Ashley as a character could be given a bit of screen time in 3 episodes prior to ever being chosen as a Ranger, which I appreciated. In addition, I thought she was a bit of an improvement on Tanya, even though I liked Tanya as a Ranger, and that was even more true when In Space became one of the greatest seasons of all time. What I think works best about her character is her positivity and attitude that was fun and endearing while never feeling comically overdone, and was a perspective definitely needed in the void of space. And, following the trend of Yellow Rangers we've discussed so far, the way she relates to the others was valuable as well, namely Andros, who she develops a budding relationship with, much to the benefit of the season, because it develops both characters in ways that fighting monsters couldn't, in addition to the beautiful way that their two very divergent personalities eventually coalesce. But as an individual, Ashley also has some incredible moments that capture her heart and her intelligence, in addition to her more definitive traits. Another great example of great seasons equating to great Rangers. Speaking of Rangers who are fun and endearing, enter Lily Chilman, the bright shining sun of the Jungle Fury team. In many ways, she's a lot like the previous Yellow Rangers we've discussed, in the sense that she's exceptionally easy to love and provides some character balance to her team. And, just like some of those other Rangers, her positive mentality is challenged. In this particular case, it's when she's kind of tricked into helping Camille, which actually ends up being sage advice down the line if you know how the season plays out. But the reason I place her higher than rangers like Katie and Ashley, who function somewhat similarly in the context of their own ranger seasons, is because I feel that Lily was more effective in that specific role. It seemed like with Lily's unique brand of warmth that her teammates were actually learning from her, in addition to learning more about the fiercely dedicated warrior she can also be when the time calls for it. She doesn't go through as much development as the other rangers around her, but I didn't think that was a problem here because there wasn't as much she had to change relative to her peers. She starts out as something of an ideal ranger who only ever needed a handful of focus episodes, but what also really helped was the 3-ranger format that began the show because it was easier to get to know her versus most Yellow Rangers starting in a 5-member format. But at the end of the day, what it all really comes down to is how much I enjoy watching her as a character push through even the most fiendish of Daishi plans.
Power Rangers, go! Ninja Storm, let's go!
Dustin is probably the funniest character in a season that is inherently more lighthearted and fun than most, but one of his best features is how he represents an unapologetic passion and love for the lore and mystique that comes with being a ranger. In the world of Ninja Storm, rangers are considered more of a legend, which is why Dustin holds them in such high regard. The same regard lifelong fans such as myself can immediately relate to. He's a space case, no doubts there, but even by the standards of the more humor-centric style of Ninja Storm, I think they did well to refrain from overplaying the airhead card and balancing that with giving Justin a huge heart and allowing him to mature as both a person and a ninja as time went on. And there's something to be said for having the first male Yellow Ranger as part of the main cast, Alien Rangers notwithstanding, because it was a major turning point that redefined what a Ranger could be and essentially informed us all that the perceived masculine or feminine nature of certain colors doesn't hold weight when compared to who the person inside the suit actually is. And yes, I would like to see a male Pink Ranger one of these days, or at the very least, a female Red Ranger that doesn't have to turn to the dark side or get overshadowed by her younger brother. But getting back to Dustin specifically, he represents the very soul of a season that, by design, was a lot more relaxed than many others. And if you're into that sort of humor and pace change, then this season, and the wonderful Yellow Ranger within it, will deliver. As cliche as some of the early Ranger characterizations could get, I think Trini was arguably the original Ranger with the most depth in the context of the seasons she was present in. As directly opposed to what the whole overblown Asian Yellow Ranger observation might tell you, she's not really a stereotype. She's smart, yes, but in a sensibly framed way that allows her to assist the actual resident genius with many inventions. In addition, the way her family is introduced in the show and the sacrifices she's willing to make for them, how she's allowed to be more tomboyish than most female Rangers, and the passion she has for the environment long before she got whisked away to a World Peace Summit all give her a diverse set of interests which made Trini not just captivating, but relatable for many and definitive for most. For clear reasons, talking about Tui Trang will always hit hard and hurt bad for those of us that grew up watching her fight evil back in the early to mid-90s, so hopefully this segment did enough to respect and honor both her memory and undeniable impact. A few spots ago, I talked about how Ashley was a much-needed personality during the in-space days. Maya, in a sense, is a more advanced version of that necessity since her unique abilities in the realm of Lost Galaxy were even more pivotal to that season. It's not just her noteworthy kindness or empathy that makes her great, but her strong connection to the more magical and spiritual elements that surround the Galaxy Rangers. A perspective that the others can't as easily embrace because most of them have jobs that revolve around advanced Star Trek-like technology. Here again, we have character balance playing a crucial role that gives the Rangers a connection to the very sizable unknowns that define the final frontier. She really is the glue that holds almost every aspect of the show together because of the myriad of ways she connects to almost every main character in addition to the Galactabees. But even beyond that is the way that she as an individual is tested with every new step in the journey, from her planet being under attack to having to immediately transition from that devastating experience to being a hero, and then needing to adjust to a life on a one-of-a-kind advanced space station. But she pulls through all of those challenges with undeterrable spirit. It'll be different for everyone, of course, but for me, the Galaxy Rangers are my all-time favorite team, and by a fair margin, and Maya is a big reason why. If you're looking for a strong, engrossing, uncompromising character, look no further than Taylor, Wild Force's unofficial driving force. She got heavy credibility from me right off the bat with her experience as an Air Force pilot, making her almost overqualified to be a Ranger just based on previous teams and their resumes or lack thereof. I also liked how they staggered the Wild Force team, making it clear that Taylor had been rangering for over a year and the others a few months before Cole even joined, which actually makes more sense than being able to gather a 5-man team at the same time purely by destiny. Both her Air Force and Ranger experience defines her strong persona, and despite the fact that Cole ended up becoming the leader of the team, I always found myself thinking that Taylor could have just pulled a Jen and been the leader despite her color, which would have made even more sense since she had been doing this the longest. But even having said that, I really liked how Taylor eventually learned to not just accept Cole as the leader, but respect him because of how Cole's unique brand of energy really does capture the spirit of what being a Ranger is all about. The thing I love most about Taylor is not just how tough she can be, but how tough she has to be at certain times because the team she has is relatively young and a bit on the lighthearted side. It's a season about nature, destiny, fate, and magic, but I felt that Taylor's sensibilities, which would more cleanly fit into a Lightspeed rescue or an S.P.D type environment, were that much more valuable here because at the end of the day, being a Ranger is more than just destiny. It's a job that has to get done. But even through her at times cold demeanor is a more sensitive side that gets a bit of focus over time, and her overall character near the end of the show, who is a bit more laid back than when she started, is in line with the effect that her team has had on her during their battles with the Orgs. I considered her the perfect Yellow Ranger for a time, but then along came my number one pick. But first, let's bring in a couple of honorable mentions. Summer Landsdown is hands down my pick for the greatest Yellow Ranger of all time. Even though I use the term perfect when talking about Taylor, I don't say that to imply flawlessness. I use that term because I really couldn't think of a way to improve on the character I experienced in the context of the show. And that's even more true for Summer. She really is almost every valuable trait from almost every Ranger worth mentioning all in one, and somehow RPM's writers turned all of that into an exceptionally cohesive character in addition to a captivating one. She's smart, but just like Trini, they properly level out her intelligence and give the resident genius room to work. She's empathetic and understanding, similar to Maya or Lily, but that empathy does more to drive the very Dylan-focused plotline through most of the first half of the season. She's strong-willed and capable of handling herself, but even though most Rangers can be generally defined as such, she goes one level beyond that to prove herself as a capable leader and level-headed thinker when the situation demands that from her. And all of that is driven by a powerful, almost Batman-like backstory with a one man that understood how great she was, even when she herself was acting more like a privileged princess than the all-time great Ranger that she is lost to the Venjix attack, forcing her to become something more. It's not a subtle personality shift by any means, but that makes sense here because Venjix destroyed the planet, and when humanity goes through an extinction level event, it forces people to change rather quickly, or, if nothing else, rely more heavily on the sides of them that are best suited towards survival. And that might not even be the best part about her, the subtle and overt ways that she firmly rejects not just her old life of opulence, but the old Summer in general, is an inspired piece of character design. It's not just about rejecting her parents' money for the sake of it, it's about understanding what really matters in a time of global crisis. She's not rejecting marriage because she's not womanly, she's rejecting it because she doesn't love the guy, she'll choose who she does end up loving, and again, we're in the middle of a global crisis. She's one of the handful of Rangers I would consider a role model regardless of your gender, who enthralls at every turn and is always sensibly written with regards to how she thinks, feels, and acts. In a Ranger season that is arguably one of the best, if not the best ever made, I consider Summer to be the greatest part of RPM. Thanks for watching. If you like this countdown, go ahead and leave a like, sub for more, and share the list with any fellow Ranger fans. And don't forget to follow the Disney Brain on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Links down below. The coming days will bring the regularly scheduled Disney-related content, as well as the next Ranger countdown, featuring the top 10 best Green and Black Rangers, since there's not nearly enough to do those colors separately. So, lots to look forward to. Until then...
I don't know who I am.
That's quite all right, Miss Summer. I do. That's why I'm happy to keep waiting.